empty lobby at the University of Iowa Hospital at 5 o'clock at night, getting the news of my diagnosis and hearing 4 to 8 months, 2 years ago today. And I figure regardless of what happens from today forward, we have beaten the odds. So we are grateful to be here and to piggyback off that. The other thing that now that annual conference is over, and not that we anticipated anything else but this, but when annual conference is over and they print who's serving where in the next year, July 1 being the first day of the new year, we have been officially appointed to an 8th year here. So we are grateful. As I said to the bishop, I'm not challenging you, Bishop, but let's be honest. I'm damaged goods. What church would want me now? So I think Alito's stuck with us. So I've made it clear before that Jim Gaffigan is one of my favorite comedians, and we found him one day quite by accident, and just were in that right frame of mind and laughed our fool heads off about him and his hot pockets. But if you know him, he talks a lot about food, and he talks a lot about family and being a dad. And I thought about him this Father's Day. I saw a taped concert of him once, and he said, well, my wife just had a baby. And everybody in the crowd applauded. He's like, thank you for, that's what you do. Thank you very much. And then he says, with the applause dies down, he says, yeah, this is our 5th child. Nothing. The joint is like you can hear a pin drop. And he starts laughing and he goes, yeah, that seldom gets the same response. By the time you get to 5, people are like, are you insane? And he said, you want to know what it's like as a dad having a 5th child? He said, I want you to picture this. You're drowning, and then someone hands you a baby. I love that. So we've been talking about unsung heroes of the Bible. You know, the great heroes of the Bible we all know. These are the unsung ones, the ones that really most of us probably have never heard of before. We know next to nothing about any of them. And they're not so unsung because they did this miraculous, splitting the Red Sea sort of thing. They're unsung simply because they stuck by their faith and they stayed on the correct side of both history and God. Week 1 started in the Old Testament with Rahab. Week 2 stayed there, Jethro. Week 3 continued to stay there, Naaman's wife's maid. Week 4 we stepped into the New Testament, looked at the thief on the cross. Week 5 stayed there, looked at Tabitha, who died and came back to life. Week 6, still in the New Testament, Ananias, reluctantly called to go and lay hands on and save Saul of Tarsus. Last week, a quick jaunt back to the Old Testament, where we looked at Yael, who carries out this gruesome task but saves her people. Today we wrap it up by coming back to the New Testament, and we look at a guy who stepped up, whose name is Simon of Cyrene. Now, I've shared all along that we know very little about these people. You will hear 100% of what we know about Simon of Cyrene in today's scripture. Hear these words from the book, the Gospel of Matthew.
As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross.
Wait, that's it?
That's it.
Okay. That's it. That is absolutely all we know about Simon of Cyrene. One sentence. So we're going to spend today talking about one sentence and the guy it represents. So I want you to picture the backstory. It's Holy Week, the first Holy Week. It's Good Friday. Jesus started that week riding triumphantly into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, which means peacetime, as people waved palm branches and cheered him on, yelling, "Hosanna in the highest." And throughout the week, he spent the week teaching and preaching and preparing the disciples last-minute preparations for what he knew was coming at the end of the week. Then on Thursday, he sent disciples to go and prepare an upper room for the Passover meal. They go there. He washes, among other things, he washes their feet, which was a huge sign of a servant. And he really demonstrated servant leadership. Then they shared in the Passover meal. He said one of them would betray him. Judas leaves. The rest of them go with him out into the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. He leads them out toward the head of the garden, and he goes deeper in, prays to God. You know, if it is your will, take this cup away from me. But not my will, but yours. He comes back to the disciples. They're all asleep. It's late at night. They're tired. Jesus wakes them up and he says, "Couldn't you stay awake with me just a little longer? The spirit is willing, the flesh is weak." And then he tells them, "Get up, as my accuser comes." And here comes Judas with Roman soldiers to arrest Jesus. Well, over the course of that night and part of the next day, he is beaten, frankly, nearly to death. He's found guilty. He's sentenced to be crucified. And then he is dragged through the streets of Jerusalem and forced to carry his cross on what has become known as the Via Dolorosa, the Way of Sorrows. That's the path that they took through the city of Jerusalem. And as the procession makes its way through the streets of Jerusalem, it becomes more and more apparent to the Roman guards and the people who are lining the streets, Jesus is not going to make it to the place of the skull, Golgotha, where the crucifixion is supposed to happen. He's too weak. He's been beaten too severely. And so the soldiers reach into the crowd, they grab a guy, and they drag him out of the crowd, and they make him carry the cross. They grab Simon of Cyrene. Now, to say we know, nothing about him is obviously a gross understatement. one sentence, you can't know anything about him. We don't know if he was a believer. We don't know if he was chosen on purpose. We don't know if he was randomly selected by a Roman soldier. And we don't know what became of him after his brief appearance in the gospel. What we do know is that regardless of anything else, when Simon was pressed into service, he stepped up. We know that because they dragged him out of the crowd. They said, pick that up and carry it. And he did. Now, did he do it out of fear? Did he do it out of faith? We have no idea. But we know when he did, when he was chosen, he stepped up. He picked up the cross of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and he carried it. He picked up the cross of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and he carried it. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever carried a cross, the one out here, for instance, that dude's heavy, and it digs in, and my gut tells me that the cross that Jesus had was bigger than that. It's hard, and it's grueling, and it gets to you physically very quickly. And yet he picked it up, and he carried it. And to quote our former bishop, Bishop Palmer, that, my friends, is what I stopped by to talk to you about this morning. What does that mean? What does that mean to carry the cross of Jesus Christ? Well, it means to take up the burden along with the blessing. It means to accept more fully the weight of your own shame and disappointment. It means to go the extra mile. If we're told to go 1, it means we should be willing to go 2. Okay, that all sounds great. What does it mean in real time? It's one thing to read about some guy doing it 2,000 years ago. What does it mean for us right now? Well, it looks a lot like obedience. Simon was obedient. Who he was obedient to, I don't know. Was he only being obedient to the Roman soldiers because he was afraid for his own safety? Or was he being obedient to God because he had faith and Jesus had gotten into his heart in the time he was in Jerusalem? But either way you look at it, it looks like obedience. It looks like compliance. It looks like commitment and dedication. Carrying the cross of Jesus Christ means looking beyond the pressures and the demands of the world and instead focusing on the yoke of Jesus. For it is, and I quote, light. So what burden are you carrying this morning that's threatening to completely overwhelm you? What burden is it that when you walk, you're in danger of collapsing under the weight of it? We all have them. Maybe you don't have one right now. Maybe you feel like you're really putting in the short grass right now. But the truth is, you've been in the sand trap before. And the truth is, you'll be there again. We all get stuck in the sand trap sometimes. And it's those burdens that threaten to completely overwhelm us. I mean, let's be honest, there are days, we've all had them, where you can barely breathe. You just were so overwhelmed by something in your life. But when we pick up the cross of Jesus Christ, it puts everything in perspective. Because his burden is easy and his yoke is light, he tells us. But here's the key. If you're willing to pick up his cross, means you got to put yours down. You can't accept other things with open arms if they're not open. So if you're going to take up his cross, you got to first put yours down. You simply can't pick it up if your hands are full of baggage. And when you set your stuff down, there's an important step that you have to be willing to make. You got to get up the courage to set all your junk at the feet of Jesus, pray to him, and then walk away. If you come to the feet of Jesus and you set all your crud down, and you pray, and then you don't have the courage to walk away without picking your own crud back up, you haven't gained anything at all. Laying it down does you no good if you simply pick it back up when you're done. You have to trust that he's going to handle whatever you lay there. As he says in the Gospels, he's going to tie a millstone around it and cast it into the deepest part of the ocean, never to be seen again. So, back to the question at hand. What is your burden? What's the cross that you bear? Maybe it's relational. Maybe it's physical. Maybe it's financial. I don't know. But you know, and God knows. But what is it? The thing that weighs you down every day. And you don't want it one more day. What better day than today? The last day of this series, Father's Day, a beautiful day for a new beginning. What better day than today to make that change? So today we're going to do something we don't do a ton here. You're going to be invited to bring your burden directly to Jesus this morning. We're going to open up the prayer room. And if you feel that Jesus is calling you to bring your burden down, set it at the prayer rail, pray to him for strength, and then leave it and pick up his cross, which is easy and light and will allow you to move forward under your own power. If you feel called to do that today, man, all I can tell you is be like Nike. Just do it. Mirror Simon of Cyrene, regardless of why he did it, and feel comfortable to bring it down. I'll warn you, some of you are sitting there right now thinking, I would really like to do that, but I'm worried about what other people will think. And I'll tell you two things. One is I get that, and two is, who gives a rat's tail what other people think? Who cares? It's between you and God. We are family. And if we have to worry so much about why somebody else is coming to the altar, we're focused on the wrong thing. So if you feel God calling you to come forward, I would highly encourage you to come and do that. And what better time than right now? So if you feel so led, please come, for all is ready. And if you don't, but you see somebody down here, and you feel God calling you to come lay hands on them, do it. You don't have to have all the wise words in the world. Just come. So please come now. Father God, I can't tell you how much it means to me to serve a church that takes prayer so seriously. Thank you for that. And I pray, not only for those who came down, but all of us. I pray that you would just continue to walk with us and guide us. And as we move now toward a time of offering, I pray that you would just use us in powerful ways, Lord. Help us to be the people who mirror Simon, who are willing to lay down our burdens and instead pick up your yoke, which is easy and light. Bless the gifts that you are about to receive and those who give them. For it is in your name that we pray. Amen.